Grandpa's health started to decline when I was in my late 20s. At first, it was little things, forgetting names, losing track of time. Then it got worse. He was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, and Grandma, who was already struggling with arthritis, became his full-time caregiver. Although in reality, most of the caregiving fell to me. They tried their best to be self-sufficient, but they needed my help more and more. One day after Grandpa had a particularly bad day, I confronted Meredith in the hopes that I could enlist her help. Meredith, I need your help. We can't do this alone.
I'm not a nurse, Corey. Find someone else. Maybe find someone that gives a crap.
They took us in when we had no one. Don't you feel any obligation to repay that kindness?
Nope. I didn't ask to be born into this family. And besides, why would I want to take care of them? I can think of way more fun things to do than to hang around two old farts and a loser like you.
Her apathy was infuriating, and her cruelty was unbearable. She started yelling at Grandpa when he forgot things, calling him useless and a burden. She mocked Grandma for being slow and clumsy. Hi there, my name is Corey. If I'm being honest, my life has always revolved around my sister, Meredith. Not by choice, but because she's the kind of person who demands attention, selfish, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. We used to be close when we were little, but everything changed when our parents died in a car accident. I was 15, Meredith was 17, and suddenly, we were orphans. Grandma Rose and Grandpa Eric, our father's parents, stepped in. They were already in their late 60s, but they didn't hesitate to take us in. Family takes care of family, Grandpa said when we moved in. They gave us a stable home and all the love they had. But Meredith didn't see it that way. To her, it was just another burden she didn't want to carry.
Meredith, do you mind setting the table for dinner?
Do it yourself, Grandma. I'm busy.
She asked you nicely, Meredith. The least you can do is help out. Maybe stop staring at your phone all day and stop being lazy.
Oh, shut up, Corey. No one asked for your opinion.
This was typical Meredith. Always taking, never giving. When Grandpa lent her money to buy a used car, he made her promise to look for a job. Instead, she spent her days driving to parties and racking up parking tickets. Not only that, but since our grandparents co-signed for the car for her, they started getting calls from collections agencies when she stopped making car payments. Meredith, you're 3 months behind on payments. They're threatening to repossess and tow the car.
Relax, Grandpa. It's just a car.
But we co-signed for it. If they repossess it, that will negatively affect our credit score.
I can always get another.
It's not just a car. Meredith, are you really so selfish and stupid that you don't realize that if they repossess it, that means that you won't get another one? No car dealership is going to sell you a replacement car when they were forced to take this one back. Plus, you aren't the only person that will suffer if that happens. Do you really not care about how it will affect our grandparents?
God, you're so dramatic. All of you need to calm down and relax. Just stop whining.
Meredith's selfishness wasn't just about money. One Thanksgiving, she decided at the last minute not to come to dinner. Grandma had spent days cooking her favorite dishes, sweet potato casserole, pecan pie, and was heartbroken when Meredith called.
I've got other plans.
Plans? But it's Thanksgiving. We were looking forward to spending it together as a family.
What family? You aren't my mother, and I'd rather do something fun. Yeah, well, I'll catch you next time.
Meredith replied before hanging up. That night, Grandma cried as we packed the untouched food into containers. I tried to comfort her, but my own resentment toward Meredith was growing stronger. After losing our parents, our grandparents had really stepped up and filled the void they left behind. We never had to worry about anything with them, and they truly were loving and wonderful people. It enraged me the way Meredith would treat them. As the years went by, it became clear that Meredith had no intention of changing. She moved in and out of the house, leaving chaos in her wake. Bills went unpaid, valuables went missing, and every confrontation ended with her blaming someone else. Meredith, you've got to start paying rent.
Rent? This is Grandma and Grandpa's house. Why should I pay anything?
Because they're on a fixed income. Do you even care how much stress you're causing them?
Not my problem. Besides, we both know that they are loaded. They have more than enough money.
They're retired, though. Whatever money they have has to last until they pass away, and if we're lucky, they'll live for another 40 years.
I hope not. I, for one, could use that money.
I was so disgusted with her. It was a sad day when I realized that not only had I lost my parents, but at some point I had lost my sister as well. I didn't know who this horrible person was anymore, and I wanted nothing to do with her. And then things began to take a turn for the worse. Grandpa's health started to decline when I was in my late 20s. At first, it was little things, forgetting names, losing track of time. Then it got worse. He was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, and Grandma, who was already struggling with arthritis, became his full-time caregiver. Although in reality, most of the caregiving fell to me. They tried their best to be self-sufficient, but they needed my help more and more. One day after Grandpa had a particularly bad day, I confronted Meredith in the hopes that I could enlist her help. Meredith, I need your help. We can't do this alone.
I'm not a nurse, Corey. Find someone else. Maybe find someone that gives a crap.
They took us in when we had no one. Don't you feel any obligation to repay that kindness?
Nope. I didn't ask to be born into this family. And besides, why would I want to take care of them? I can think of way more fun things to do than to hang around two old farts and a loser like you.
Her apathy was infuriating, and her cruelty was unbearable. She started yelling at Grandpa when he forgot things, calling him useless and a burden. She mocked Grandma for being slow and clumsy, and when Joe entered the picture, things got even worse. Joe was everything you'd expect from someone who would date Meredith: loud, rude, and completely devoid of empathy. He mocked Grandpa's memory lapses and laughed at Grandma's struggle to carry laundry up the stairs. One night, after Joe made a particularly cruel joke about Grandma's cane, I snapped, "Get out of this house, Joe. What are you gonna do, Corey? Lecture me? Because we both know that you don't have the balls to throw me out yourself. You're too weak to do anything. Leave. Now!"
He's my guest, Corey. You don't get to decide who stays.
A week later, they were gone. They left without a word, abandoning our grandparents in their time of greatest need. I wish they had left because I told them to, but I think they were just sick of constantly being asked to help out around the house. At first, I was furious. But as the days passed, I realized life was better without them. The house was quiet and peaceful, and as an added benefit, my grandma and grandpa seemed happier. For the next few years, I devoted myself to caring for my grandparents. It was hard, physically, emotionally, financially, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. They had given me everything, and I was determined to repay them. But eventually, my grandpa's illness caught up with him. He passed away on a crisp November morning. He held my hand and asked me to look after my grandma, and then he said that he loved us both very much, and then he was gone. But Grandma didn't last long without him. 3 days later, she passed away in her sleep. At their funeral, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss, but also peace. They had been together for over 50 years, and now they were reunited. Honestly, I felt that they loved each other so much that the thought of living without one another was too much, and I think my grandma died so that she could be with him again. After the funeral, I returned to the house to start packing up their belongings. That's when Meredith showed up, with Joe.
Hey, baby brother. I saw the good news online.
Good news? How can you still be such a ghoul?
I see you still can't take a joke and that you still have a rod up your butt. What other reason would I be here in this dump? I'm here for the will, of course.
What are you doing here? You can't be serious. After abandoning them years ago, you think they would leave you with something? Why not? It's what we're owed. We're family after all. You abandoned them. You don't deserve a dime.
Joe and I are here to collect our share. Spare me the lecture, Corey. We'll wait here until the will is read. And once we get our share, then and only then will we leave.
You can't stay here. Besides, the will's reading is private. You two assholes aren't allowed in the office.
Yeah, right. As if a scrawny loser like you could keep us out. Go ahead and try and stop us.
The next morning, I left extra early in the morning to meet with the lawyer. When the will was read, I was stunned. My grandparents had left everything to me. The house, their savings, everything. The lawyer handed me a note in Grandma's handwriting. Use this money to see the world, Corey. Live the life you've always dreamed of. When I returned home, I quickly packed a bag and headed to the airport. Just as my grandma had instructed, I bought a ticket to the Bahamas, and once there, I booked a stay at an all-inclusive resort. It had been years since I had been on vacation, and I needed the downtime badly. It was expensive since I did everything last minute, but I now had the money to afford it, and time away did wonders for me. However, my vacation was interrupted.
Where are you? When's the reading?
I'm on vacation and it already happened. They left everything to me.
You're lying!
No, Meredith. They gave me everything because they knew I was the only one who cared.
That's not fair. What about Joe and I?
It's more than fair, actually. But what I don't get is why you think I should care. You're both adults. Why do I need to take care of you?
Because we're broke, Corey. We owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to debt collectors, and we needed our grandparents' money to get us out of debt. We can't even afford to buy groceries. We are that poor. Please have some sympathy for us.
She did her best to try to make me feel sympathy for them, but it wasn't working. After the way they had treated me and our grandparents, there was no way I was going to have an ounce of sympathy for them. That's when I came up with a rather evil plan. Fine. I'll help you.
Wait, you will?
Yes, I will, but I'm not ending my vacation early for you two. You'll have to come here to me. I'm in China.
China? We can't afford a plane ticket to China. We literally have no money at all.
It's fine. I'll pay for you two to fly out here, and I'll even put you up in a 5-star hotel. We'll sip champagne and eat caviar while we hash out things. Sound good?
Oh my God, yes! The flight better be first class, though.
I agreed, and I paid for a one-way trip to China for them. Thankfully, greed made my sister and Joe incredibly blind and stupid because they didn't notice that the flights were one-way, and they didn't even question why I had traveled to China, of all places, whereas I was in the Bahamas. While they were flying across the ocean, I called the police office in China where they were to land, and I described my sister and Joe to the officers, and I lied to them and told them that they were drug traffickers. The police took my story seriously, and they arrested Joe and Meredith shortly after they landed. Of course, without any money, they couldn't afford a lawyer, and so they were railroaded through the Chinese judicial system. From what I heard, they ended up serving several months in jail while the whole thing was sorted out. Meanwhile, back home, I sold my grandparents' house. It was a beautiful house, but there were too many painful memories there, and I wanted a fresh start, so I sold it and moved across the country to the coast where I bought a house right on the beach with a very high-tech security system. I also spent some of my inheritance on buying a cafe near to my new home. It took a bit to get both just the way I wanted them, but I built a life for myself there, and whenever I wasn't working, I was traveling the globe as my grandmas had wanted for me. I know one day that Joe and Meredith will find a way to get back home, but I doubt it will be anytime soon, and even then, I didn't exactly leave a trail for them to follow, so it will be many years before they figure out where I am. Should they ever find me though, I plan to hit them with a restraining order. As for me, in the meantime, I'm living the good life. I do miss my grandparents, but I also know that they would be proud that I stood up to my sister, and I know that they would very much approve of how I live my life. Thanks for watching.